Digimon Frontier originally aired from 2002 until 2003, and for many marked the end of the original seasons of the Digimon anime, as the next anime series, Digimon Sabers, didn't begin for another 3 years. And, by then, many of the series' original target demographic had begun to age out into teenagers. But, during the time between Frontier and Sabers, there were a few attempts to give the series a sequel. However, these all had varying levels of success. There is of course the CD dramas that took place after the events of Frontier, but I'm talking more about long-winded sequels that were planned. I have covered all of these topics in previous videos in more detail, so if you do want more information, please check out my other videos on these topics. The most well-known sequel of Digimon Frontier would probably have to be Digimon Legendary Skies. This was a Chinese Digimon manhwa that was released from mid to late 2004, so about a year after Digimon Frontier finished. However, it was discontinued due to copyright issues relating to the appearance of the cast of Frontier and the resulting major rewrites. Now, this is a shame because not only was this series never finished, it never obviously got a release outside of China, which is a shame because from what I've seen and from what I know about the series, it was fairly interesting. It had the idea that the digital world wasn't just made because of the digital networks and the result of technology in the human world, but was actually around and had been around since Chinese mythology. So the fact that they brought Chinese mythology into the creation of the digital world is really a pretty fascinating idea and fairly unique. But of course, it was cancelled or discontinued, and we never got anything else out of the series, which is, again, it's a shame. It's a shame about any cancelled or discontinued series in general, not just to do with Digimon. Meanwhile, of course, over in the US, there was a toy line-based sequel to Frontier that was planned by Bandai America, and it went far enough to have prototypes of the Digivice toy from the series. The line was called the Digimon Force 3, and it consisted of 3 Digivice toys: Hyper, Fusion, and Armor. The toys worked with the Detector card game, similar how to the English Detector did, but the storyline for these toys took place 100 years after the events of Frontier, where if this was the 100 years of digital world time or human time, I couldn't really find an answer for this, as the only information that exists for this is just in promotional material. So it's 100 years, but whether that is human time or digital world time is kind of an unknown. I kind of would have preferred it to be digital world time, as I guess that would involve less of a time skip for the human world, but also the potential for other characters to pop up here and there. But again, who's to know except for whoever was working on this originally prior to it being cancelled. So the Force 3 Digivices were cancelled, and nothing else is known about the toy line other than what was released in promotional material. However, a pseudo-sequel to Frontier was released by Bandai Asia in the first version of the D-Spirit. The D-Spirit was the analyzer toy released for Digimon Frontier, but while its Tamer's counterpart, the D-Gather, featured a virtual pet mechanic in addition to the database functionality, the D-Spirit featured a quest game where the player navigated through 11 maze-like areas, 10 of which were themed after the Warrior 10. The player chooses one of the 3 player characters. However, none of these 3 characters are ones that have appeared in Frontier or any other piece of Digimon media for that matter. And here's where I wonder if these characters are based on any characters from the previously mentioned Legendary Skies manhwa. However, the D-Spirit did release a year prior to that, and I'm wondering even if they're meant to be 3 of the other children who ended up in the digital world, as the girl vaguely does resemble the girl from this group. There's also the possibility that these three characters could have been the characters from Force 3, but it's impossible to tell other than the fact that there are three of them. Again, this could be just reaching, they could just be three vague character designs that are not meant to be anything, they're just meant to be three different generic characters, one being girl, the other being a guy with pointy hair, and the last being the Goggle Kid. It's fairly generic for Digimon, so it could be anything. It's probably just vague generic characters, but I would have liked it to be a tie-in to anything else Digimon Frontier related, be it Legendary Skies, be it the bullies that show up, Tommy's bullies, the other kids that just show up in Digimon Frontier, or even have it been some tie-in to Force 3. It's probably just generic characters. So this does count less as a sequel than the others, but I thought it would be worth mentioning because of these potentially unique characters and how it could have possibly tied into Force 3 or Legendary Skies had they both had or either had successful releases. It makes sense that Frontier had multiple attempted sequels due to the several-year gap between Frontier and Sabers, but it's a shame that none of these really stuck except for the D-Spirit, which is pretty cool, honestly. Again, it was Bandai Asia only, so it only released in Bandai Asia or anywhere where Bandai Asia releases toys, such as Australia. I'm not sure, though, if the second version of the D-Spirit released in Australia by Bandai Asia. I do know that the version 1 did, but I'm not so sure about the version 2. I had to import mine several years ago from Asia, but the version 1 I got within Australia. So I know at least for a fact that the version 1 did get released in Australia, though it could, maybe the D-Spirit 2 was as well, but as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen anything to indicate otherwise, but in any case the version 1 was. And I just thought I'd mention the version 1 again in this video, just because what if it does or did have any tie-ins to any of these Digimon Frontier planned sequels that didn't seem to pan out. I just find it fascinating that there were so many Frontier sequels that weren't even made by Toei or Bandai Japan that were released outside of Japan or were meant to release outside of Japan. Again, it makes sense because there is that 3-year gap between Season 4 and Season 5, so it had to sell toys somehow, but it is interesting that they tried to make Frontier last longer than it did, but it is a shame that these didn't pan out ultimately. Again, the Force 3 sounds pretty interesting. I would have liked to know more information about it. And of course, Legendary Skies had a lot of interesting ideas that set itself out from being fairly different to anything else we have in the Digimon franchise. So that's it for another video. I really had wanted to talk about this for a long time. I always talk about these in previous videos, so I thought that it'd be good to just kind of combine them into one video just to talk about, hey, it's pretty interesting that we had so many planned sequels to Digimon Frontier. So in any case, thanks for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts, comments, questions, etc., in the comment section below. Like this video for more sequels that get planned, but maybe these get released, I don't know. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have subscribed, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, and of course, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!